views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Good morning, everyone. Today, pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85 of the New York City Charter, a meeting of the Bronx Borough Board will take place on Thursday, October 26, 2017 at 9:15 a.m. The meeting will take place at 198 East 161st Street, 10th floor conference room. We have two items on the agenda this morning. The 2017 amendment to the 5-year capital plan and the M1 hotel zoning text amendment. So without any further ado, I'd like to call up Mr. Benjamin Goodman, the Community Relations Manager for the School Construction Authority. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm Ben Goodman. I'm the Community Relations Manager for the Bronx for the New York City School Construction Authority. Mm-hmm. This morning I'm here to present on our 2017 amendment to the 5-year capital plan. We'll go through the presentation. We'll show the new buildings that have opened in the Bronx, the new school buildings this past school year, and other projects that the School Construction Authority is currently working on. The building behind me here is Building 317 in Soundview on White Plains Road. It was just opened this past September for the new school year. It's a new elementary school serving grades pre-kindergarten through 5th grade in School District 8. So what is the School Construction Authority? Our mission is to design and construct safe, attractive, and environmentally sound public schools for the many different children throughout the many communities of New York City. Our organization is dedicated to building and maintaining schools in a responsible and cost-effective manner, while at the same time achieving the highest standards of excellence in safety, quality, and integrity. So the February 2017 amendment, it totals $15.52 billion. And we'll get into the breakdown of what the three buckets there you can see on the pie chart are: capital investment of $6 billion. Those are essentially all new public school buildings. Capacity investment is the improvements to the city's public schools. So anytime you see an exterior masonry, a playground redevelopment, any job that the School Construction Authority does to keep our schools in a state of good repair, or any infrastructure improvements. Capacity projects is $5.9 billion. That is the new public schools. Any new public schools you see being built from the ground up, or additions to any of our existing school buildings. And lastly, mandated programs of $3.6 billion. Those are any programs that the School Construction Authority is required to undertake in accordance with any local law, federal or state, other federal or state laws, court decisions, or any renewal of leases for any of our public schools that are in privately leased buildings where the School Construction Authority needs to renegotiate a new lease with a property owner. An example of that is the lighting fixtures replacements of lighting fixtures that contain PCBs would fall in the mandated programs category. So the capacity program, $5.9 billion at new capacity, which is the construction of approximately 44,000 seats citywide. Our pre-kindergarten initiative of $800 million, in addition to class size reduction, $490 million. An example of that program In the Bronx is the new addition for PS 19 that we just kicked off in Woodlawn in School District 11. So now we'll go through a breakdown of the individual school districts across the Bronx, across the borough, as well as a breakdown of the funded need that's in each of our sub-districts and pre-K programs. So for District 7, we have a funded need of 456 seats. In the concourse, we are currently looking for a place to build here in the South Bronx for District 7. We also have an unfunded need in Melrose of 572 seats that we do see a need for new schools, but at this time we do not yet have funding to build new construction. And lastly, we've opened 2 pre-kindergarten centers in District 7 at 535 Union Avenue, as well as 105 Willis Avenue, for a total of 270 new seats. School District 8 has 456 funded seats. We are currently working on an addition for PS 14 in Throgsneck. That's anticipated to open next September 2018. We also have an additional 112 funded seats within Throgsneck and 572 unfunded seats within the neighborhood of Soundview. District 9, we have 572 unfunded seats in Highbridge South. We've also opened a pre-kindergarten center at 1434 Ogden Avenue in 2015 with 90 pre-kindergarten seats. School District 10, we have 3,016 funded seats. We're currently working on an addition for PS 46 that's anticipated to open in 2019 with 500 new seats. We also have an additional 2,516 seats within School District 10 that we're currently looking for space to build either a new addition or new schools. There's also 2,676 unfunded seats within District 10. We've also opened 648 new pre-kindergarten seats at standalone pre-kindergarten centers within District 10, including a new center at 2490 2500 Webster Avenue that opened this past September with 198 new pre-kindergarten seats. For School District 11, the School Construction Authority is currently designing an addition for PS 97 with approximately 548 new seats. That's in the Van Ness Pelham Parkway subdistrict. We anticipate opening that addition in September of 2021. There's also about 1,850 unfunded seats, approximately 570 in Woodlawn Williamsbridge, and approximately 1,280 are also within the Van Ness Pelham Parkway subdistrict of School District 11. Lastly, School District 12, we are going to open a new school within the Tremont West Farm subdistrict of 456 seats. This is a developer project, and at this time, we don't yet have an occupancy date, but we do have funding for the new school. We also have an additional unfunded seat need of 572 within the same Tremont West Farm subdistrict. In addition, we also have funding for another 456-seat school within the same subdistrict that we're currently looking for available land to construct. So we're now getting into the transportable classroom units that have been removed across the borough. These are the individual school trailers that you've seen either on the sidewalk or in the schoolyard. To date, the School Construction Authority has removed 24 borough-wide, one at PS 28 in District 9, one at IS 117 in District 9, four at PS 280 and IS 80 in District 10, 2 at John F. Kennedy High School in District 10, 11 at PS 96 in District 11, and 5 at PS 106 in District 11 as well for a total of 24. In process of removal, meaning that the School Construction Authority, along with our partners at the Department of Education, have identified a way to remove the TCUs, those transportable classroom units, meaning that we and our partners, again, at the DOE, have come up with a way to find space or have found space for the students and staff housed within the TCUs. There's currently 16 borough-wide that we will be removing shortly. You'll notice that 2 of those are for schools that are getting new additions. So in addition to removing the transportable classroom units, the School Construction Authority will also be undertaking renovations of the playground. So these are our new schools in the Bronx. The rendering is of the future new entranceway in addition to PS 19 in the Woodlawn in School District 11. This is PS 315 on Claflin Avenue. It's located in Community Board 8 in School District 10. In Council District 14 with 256 seats. This is a lease site that opened this past September. This is PS 909 on East Tremont Avenue, located within Community Board 6 in Council District 15. This is also a lease site for a District 75 program. This is PS 317 at 1028 White Plains Road in Soundview in Community Board 9, Council District 18, and School District 8 with 468 new seats that the School Construction Authority just opened this past September in Soundview. This is the addition for PS 14 in Throgsneck, anticipated to open next September. The picture on the left is the rendering of the future addition. You'll notice that it will be connected to the existing building as it stands now. And the picture on the right is ongoing construction. It's located in Community Board 10, Council District 13, and School District 8. With 344 new seats, anticipated to open next September. This is a rendering of PS 46 on East 196th Street within Community Board 7, Council District 15, and School District 10. It's 500 new seats, which is another addition, anticipated to open in September of 2019. This is a look-away rendering of PS 19. This is the class size reduction project in the Bronx. We've just awarded a contract a month or so ago to the general contractor to begin work. This is within Woodlawn in Community Board 12, School District 11, as well as Council District 11. It's 400 new seats, and we anticipate opening the new addition in September of 2020. I will now take a look through recently opened schools across the borough. This is PS 56 edition. It just opened last September. It's on 207th Street within Community Board 7, Council District 11, and School District 10. 428 new seats. This is PS 106 edition on Olmsted Avenue. It opened in September of 2015 on Community Board 9, School District 11, and Council District 18 with 333 new seats. This is the PS 96 edition, Council District 15, School District 10, and Community Board 11 with 408 new seats that opened in September of 2015. So currently, for our new projects, capacity projects that are in design or construction across the borough, there are currently 4. The PS 14 edition on Bruckner Boulevard in Community Board 10, the PS 46 edition in Community Board 7, as well as the PS 19 edition in Community Board 12, and the PS 97 edition in Community Board 11. These are our universal pre-kindergarten centers, a standalone pre-kindergarten space that the School Construction Authority has opened across the borough. This is the site in District 10, Community Board 1 at 535 Union Avenue with 180 seats that opened in September of 2015. This is the center at 1434 Ogden Avenue in Community Board 4 with 90 seats that opened in September 2015 as well. This is the Pre-K Center at 3560 Webster Avenue, Community Board 12 with 90 seats that opened in September of 2016. And this is the Pre-K Center at 3605 Cedric Avenue in Community Board 8 that also opened in September of 2016. We'll now take a look at the capital investment. These are all projects to improve the infrastructure at our public schools across the borough. It's a total for the Bronx. There's approximately $800 million in both capital improvement and mandated projects in the current 5-year capital plan. We'll take a look at some examples of these. This is the PS 18 School-Based Health Center in Community Board 1, located in School District 7 and Council District 8. These are health centers that are located on the school premises, built by the School Construction Authority. And usually they have a affiliation with a local hospital that can provide medical and mental health services on site to the students. It's a playground renovation at PS 93 in Community Board 9, School District 8, and Council District 17. This is a boiler replacement at Lehman High School within Community Board 10, School District 8, and Council District 13. This is IS 339 in Community Board 3. It's exterior masonry, windows, and roof repair work. It's located in School District 9 and Council District 16. This is a school-based health center for IS 145 within Community Board 4, School District 9, and Council District 16. This is an exterior modernization project at the Theodore Roosevelt Educational Campus in Community Board 6 within School District 10 and Council District 15. This is an exterior modernization for the Christopher Columbus Educational Campus within Community Board 11, School District 11, and Council District 13. It's another exterior modernization for PS 47 within Community Board 9, at School District 12, and Council District 18. This is the Resolution A projects. These are specific projects that are capital improvement or enhancements that are funded by the borough president or individual members of the city council. This is a auditorium upgrade for the Alfred E. Smith Educational Campus within Community Board 1 and School District 7 and Council District 17. Is gym and weight room renovation for the Stevenson Educational Campus in Community Board 9, School District 8, and Council District 18. It's a locker room upgrade for the Walton Campus in Community Board 7, School District 10, and Council District 11. And an auditorium upgrade at PS 26 within Community Board 5, School District 10, and Council District 13. And this is our contact information. You're welcome to contact me with any questions at any time. My number is 718-472-8026. We'll also leave a copy of the presentation with the Borough President's office here. If you should have any potential sites in mind that you see when you're in your communities, or if anything comes to mind, if you could please email us the site with the address and the approximate location at sites@nycsca.org. Or as well, you could just feel free to send them to me directly, and I'll pass them along to our real estate team at bgoodman@nycsca.org. And lastly, the SCA is now on Instagram, so please follow us for up-to-the-minute pictures of new capacity projects, pre-kindergartens, and Resolution A projects across the borough. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. It was quite comprehensive. And we have a number of questions. I want to start with Raphael.
Thank you.
I don't have
Thank you,
the
Madam
sheet.
Deputy. Hi, I'm Ralph Acevedo. I'm the District Manager for Community Board 2. Very impressive presentation. Unfortunately, there was not one slide regarding any current schools or anticipated schools in my district. And I'm a little concerned with that because we're expecting over 1,500 new apartments within the next 5 years. And I'm getting a high number of charter schools looking for letters of support. We are big fans of the public school system, and we are anticipating our overall residents to increase.
I got it.
And I'm just concerned that there's nothing in the works for my district. So my question then is, how was this selected, like this construction project, the anticipated, all the new ones, and anything that's under current development?
So the School Construction Authority employs demographers to study and it look at Department of Buildings records, birth records from the Department of Health, and any other city data, housing starts, for example, to see where new schools are needed. The issue is, and I think what we're getting at too, within School District 7, is that although we do have funded need in the concourse, area. There's unfunded need in Melrose. And it's because we don't have enough money to build all the schools and meet all the new capacity needs that the city and the borough needs.
Is that it? Okay. Adeline? There it is.
Thank you for a good presentation.
You're welcome.
I was hoping to have it in my hand a little bit so I can just scribble down everything, but it's very good that you have it on site. And I wanted to ask you a question. I brought this up before, even at town hall meetings. We're having so many developments coming into our district. I'm Community Board 7. I don't know why you're having trouble finding sites to build new schools, and what are the mandates you need to, what do we need to help look for in the community? And if the developers are coming in building in Strohs in our community, why not have those schools inside those buildings? Because you're saying your topographers, according to what you said, will look at the DOB site and see where it's needed, but that's after the fact that they're there, right? So how do we find out what is needed before that happens so the kids are not, we're overcrowded as it is in District 10 for the DOE.
So the School Construction Authority, ideally for us, we would need approximately 20 to 25,000 square feet, about the size of an average supermarket per se, for a new ground-up construction. That's one way. The other way is additions to existing buildings, like we opened at PS 56 on 207th Street, or where the construction is ongoing now at PS 46.
Yeah.
Those are other examples of ways that we can build capacity. We also can work with developers, and we're always happy to speak with developers. So if you hear of a developer coming to your community board who says, they would like a school in the cellar or the first few floors of their new building, we're always happy to speak with them. We have done schools in ground-up new apartment buildings on the first few floors, so that is something that we'd be very interested in.
That's interesting because we've asked every developer that question, and they get the runaround. They tell us that the DOE does not respond in a positive way for them to follow through, that there's set regulations. So I need to know
Sure.
what
So
we
you
can
can
actually ask for.
Yeah. So you can feel free to give the developer my email,
You got it.
and I'll personally follow up with you and the developer that comes. That's certainly.
Fantastic.
And it's certainly odd that they would say that,
Oh, we've
because
done
we
it more
have
than
many
once.
examples across the city of developers that we've worked with where they built a school in the first few floors of the new development or of the building.
If you have a sample of that, please send it to me.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a number of questions regarding the pre-K centers. Are these new structures or takeover of existing structures?
It depends. Some are lease sites where there's a storefront or what was a storefront, and that the School Construction Authority has renovated the space and has leased the space from the property owner. Some is ground up construction where we purchased the land and have built a new center.
So it
I
depends
can
on the
get
site
back
itself.
to you with specifics for the ones in the Bronx.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Also, please clarify where the School Construction Authority removes the TCU they are undertaking, or who undertakes the cost to renovate the schoolyard when the TCUs are removed?
The School Construction Authority does. That's within our capital budget.
Okay, okay. And another question, do you have any partners such as the Trust for Public Land?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I also want to ask you about auditorium renovations. Is a part of your responsibility the replacement of auditorium seats?
It quite honestly depends on the scope of the work. Some of that work is done by the Division of School Facilities within the Department of Education, and some of that is done by us, the School Construction Authority. If we are already doing for example, a Resolution A auditorium upgrade, and that's something that the principal would like to see done, we certainly could do that.
So it's actually up to the principal of the school to notify you
Yes.
that this needs to be done. There's no inspection of those.
There is an inspection. We do an annual inspection of all the public
That's okay.
of all the
That's
public
okay,
school
continue.
all the public school buildings citywide. So it is marked on a scale of 1 to 5, the conditions of the auditorium and the seats and the furniture and the curtains and the stage and what have you. But if, let's say that we got, for example, $500,000 from an elected official for a auditorium upgrade at a school, we would speak to the principal once we've received that funding to see what the principal would like done. And also consult with the elected official if there's something that the elected official who generously gave us the grant would really like to see.
Okay. My final question, I'll get to you. My final question is about the Alfred E. Smith High School. It has written about a punch list items that have yet to be completed. What is the status of those?
I will check and get back to you later today.
Okay,
Do you
would
happen
you
to know?
contact Monica Major
Yes.
from our office
Yes.
and let her know?
Do you happen
Okay.
to know which project they're referring to?
Which one?
Auditorium seat.
The auditorium seats, yes. And, you know, that's a big problem because we're constantly being given requests from schools throughout the borough to pay for auditorium seats. And under our understanding, that is not something that the borough president's office should be paying for. So we don't understand why the schools are making that request to us. Oh, Vicky?
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning.
Can you provide any clarity as to why there are 2,676 unfunded seats in District 10 and why that number is so much higher than every other district?
Because we've found that within District 10, that we project an increase in seat need. We project the population of students that will attend our public schools will increase.
Okay. Can you provide a little further clarity on that? Because you did state that housing starts were the data point that you used to project that need, right?
As well as birth rates and other information from the Department of Health and HPD as well.
So other as yet unspecified information from HPD.
Right. I mean, that would also be included is if any sort of large-scale affordable housing development was going to kick off. That would be an example.
So, and when you say was going to kick off, how far in advance would that factor into the projections?
That's a good question. I would need to check with my colleagues and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Can you also provide further clarity on how a seat is calculated? Is it some sort of average of the cost citywide of
How
the cost of a seat is calculated?
Each site is really site specific, so it depends on the land that is there and any work that the school construction authority needs to do. For example, like when we do additions, let's say for existing buildings, we also do work in the main building as well to bring that building up to code, to provide for full program accessibility and other work. So it really depends on the individual project.
So, okay. And can you provide a little further clarity just on District 10 once again? Are there a great number of trailers in that area, or you mentioned that you're attributing the high numbers to projected seats, right? But what are the current conditions in that district?
So District 10 has no TCUs. We've removed the TCUs at IS 80, PS 280, and JFK High School. The current trends that we're seeing within School District 10 is population growth.
Thank you.
Okay. Ken?
Thank you for that convenient segue. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Goodman. I'm now the new district manager of Bronx Board 5, which covers districts 9 and 10. So I have a couple of questions, please, to follow up on segue from Vicky's. If we have such a burgeoning number of unfunded seats, why are TCUs being taken away? That's one question. And the other question is, I'm very happy to say that I have five locations that could, 5 schools that are in need of and could potentially be expanded. So if I can give those
Yes.
sites to you.
If you could just email them to me,
Right.
that'd be great.
But my question relating to that is, I'm going to give you these addresses shortly. You receive them. What's the time frame and schedule to actually get shovels in the ground?
So it takes about a year to design a project, and then construction on average is about 2 to 3 years. So the TCUs, that the problem is that to remove the TCUs, we need to find space for the students and staff that are housed in the TCUs. So once we can identify the space with our partners at the Department of Education, we can remove them. To get to your point as to why we would remove TCUs if there is such a need, the issue still is, though, is that the TCUs are not in good condition. They're fairly old. They're not an ideal learning environment for any of our students or the staff, for that matter. The TCUs that have been removed, most of them have been, or in some cases rather, across the borough, have been removed and actually replaced by a new addition.
So will those in DC?
Talking to the mic, please.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. So the ones that were removed in 9 and 10, those will be replaced?
It depends. Their TCUs themselves are not going to be replaced. The students, for example, within, so District 9 of PS 28 and IS 117, there is one TCU at each of those 2 schools. Those students were most likely moved into the main building. Our partners at the DOE might have done a room conversion or other way to have found space for those classes to be held within the main building. For District 10 at IS 80, PS 280, and JFK High School, it'd be the same thing where a room conversion may have been done. Another method may have been undertaken by the DOE to find space, enabling the SCA to remove the TCUs.
Dr. Moeller?
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Thank you, Ben. Well, just last night, Committee Board 5 joined Board 4 in passing the Jerome Avenue rezoning. Throughout the process, the Department of Education had been the only one that we did not hear anything from, and the primary highest priority is regarding schools. Already we have unfunded schools, unfunded seats, and going forward, we're expecting a new population growth. You just said it, and you now say it will take another 2 to 3 years to address the current need, not even the potential growth in population. Why is that?
It's the average time that it takes us to build a new building, because we go above and beyond, and then it's the timeline, for safe and modern construction.
But throughout the process of our visioning section, you did not respond to our request, and even elected officials said it's more difficult to get something out, a commitment out of Department of Education.
I can't speak for my colleagues at the Department of Education.
Your construction,
Yeah, we're a separate independent agency.
public relation manager,
I'm
that's
sorry?
you. I said community relation
Yes.
manager, that's you.
Yes.
So you should be able to speak for everybody in the agency. You're the liaison between the agency and us. Yeah. No response?
Right, but I don't work for the Department of Education, though. I
Yep.
work for the School Construction Authority.
I'm talking about school construction. The school construction, there was no response, and it's very difficult to get a commitment for the unfunded seats and for the new construction. That's why the district manager, Ken, told you he's going to give you a list. We've had this list of the expansion well over 3 years ago, around the time the proposal to rezone Jerome Avenue came on board. And yet nothing had happened. There is no commitment to it, and there is nothing. And now you ask us that, well, you just told us it will take another 2 to 3 years before anything happens.
And I'm right, but if you can send us the list, we'd be happy to look into it.
We've shared
the
this
issue,
before
the issue,
and
though,
before.
is
several
still is
times.
unfunded seats.
Okay.
Before I get to you, Adeline, I just want to piggyback off of Board 5's concern, because IS 117 is located in Board 5. In fact, it's located 2 or 3 blocks from Jerome Avenue, where the new construction is projected to occur. So my question is, why would you be removing the TCU when you know that this construction is in the future, that this is going to happen? Why would you take an existing facility that's geared for education and remove it, knowing that in a couple of years it's going to be vitally needed?
We have a mandate from the mayor to remove the TCU citywide. It is likely that there was space found within the existing building for the students and staff within the TCUs.
Is there okay, we need to follow up on this. We definitely need to follow up on this. I know you can't answer it, but this is something I wish you would take back
I will.
and let them know that there is concern, because our big question from the very outset was, where were the schools going to be located to accommodate this great influx of people, of families? Adeline?
Hi, Adeline Walker Santiago, the chair of CB7 in District 10, where you have 2,676 seats unfunded. And projected health department, you're saying the birth rate is high, new developments are coming in, we know left and right. The problem I have is we have district service cabinet meetings every month. We don't see you there. You're the community relations manager. You should be there or send somebody there to every meeting we have in every single one of our boards every month. You're the only agency that doesn't show up besides DOE. And I wrote a letter to the chancellor about this because I've had it. And not only that, I had somebody on my board hand deliver her the letter. And
I'd be happy to
I'm just
start
enraged
attending.
because we need you to come to the cabinet meetings so that we can discuss these issues together per each board. We cannot tolerate this anymore. It's unacceptable. If you're the community relations manager, I'm begging you please to look at this, and I'm asking the borough president's office and the mayor's office to mandate it that you have somebody at our meetings. Enough is enough. This is not acceptable. We talking about Jerome Avenue rezoning. My board is voting on that tonight. That's an exceptional amount of housing that may be coming in. This is not projected. It's already written out what's gonna happen. So we shouldn't have to wait 2 to 3 years. I'm sorry. It just has to move on. And this is really pathetic at this point, that we have this presentation. I should have it in writing in front of me, just like this one's doing it, so I can look at it and analyze it carefully while I'm listening to you. So I just want to share that to you. Thanks a lot. Very upsetting.
Okay. James?
So to continue to echo the conversation regarding Jerome, the fact is, what everyone's requesting is that this be expedited. Not, we'll go back, we'll see if it can be included, because the fact is, it's been a 3-year process. You've had 3 years to look at this. When we speak with city planning and other agencies, there's a $1 billion fund that goes towards physical and social infrastructure to a series of rezonings around the city. You know, it's not like it's not public. It's not like it's hidden somewhere. East New York is very controversial. Jerome Avenue has gotten a lot of press. And every time we speak to these other agencies about, well, what's going to be covered under this fund, the first thing they say, well, not school construction authority. They're looking at it from a different angle, and they'll address the need as needed. And it doesn't seem like it was even considered. It doesn't even seem like the authority is even aware, because when you were answering Vicky's question about the unfunded seats in 10, you vaguely talked about population growth and working with HPD, but you didn't specify if these conversations with HPD were related to Jerome Avenue whatsoever. You know, there is already a serious need, particularly, in 9 and 10. My mom was a teacher in 10, and for decades, it's always been a seating capacity issue. And now that you have minimum, 3,000 plus units coming online, with projects already identified, waiting in the wings, that if this passes, that, conversation with you yesterday with someone down near E.L. Grant wants to build 500 units there. There's a possibility up off of McCombs, 400 units might go there. And these are all waiting in the wings saying, we're ready to close, we're ready to pursue this. And just to get a response saying, well, we need to run our projections. It's been 3 years already. City planning has ran their projections, and EIS has already been done. Why is that not being considered in the capital plan? I think it's something that needs to be answered. I think it's something that needs to be expedited. Saying going back is one thing, but going back we'll have ongoing conversations with these board members to make sure that this is expedited is something that's extremely important.
Okay, are there any other? Yes, Peter.
I'm Pete Sullivan, Chair of Community Board 10, and I hear about all these renovations in existing schools and everything, and I am an electrician, and I know PCBs and transformers, they stopped selling those about 25 years ago, and we're still doing removals. About 2 months ago, OSHA enforced a new thing with the silica, which is in masonry and concrete. And with all this renovation going on and extensions and everything, the school construction authority usually goes with the lowest bid contractor. I want to know what's being done to enforce the safety of the children in these schools, along with the staff and everyone else going into these schools, that they're not being affected by the silica dust. Even when you go by any construction site, you see stuff being thrown in a dumpster, and all you see is a big cloud of dust coming out. How are we ensuring that these children aren't being affected by it?
Well, the construction done in existing buildings is done after school hours, is not done during instruction times. And we have a safety team that goes around and performs checks, in addition to the project officers and the construction managers that are on site every day, making sure that the proper protocols are being followed. Okay,
because I'm on construction sites every day, and I'm on a state job right now, and it's not being followed, and I don't really believe that when it comes to silica dust that all these contractors are up on it. And I have safety people on it that are being told back off. We got to get this project done. Safety never seems to be the utmost importance, and now we have city council just push forward. Now you need a 40-hour class for stricter safety rules, and I just am concerned about the children being affected by all this dust. So I hope that everything is being followed as you're stating.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
You got a lot to take back, and I appreciate your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the M1 Hotel Zoning Text Amendment. We have a presentation by Amanda Iyer, City Planning and Project Manager for the New York City Planning. And good morning. I think you have to go off to the side a little bit, or maybe sit in the seat where he was.
Yeah, that sounds better. Yes.
Yeah, that's better.
Lost it.
I guess you have copies of the presentation,
No.
right?
There it is.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Amanda Iyer. I am from the Department of City Planning, and I'm here with my colleagues, Jan Gravel, Jackie Sun-Woo, and James Rather, who's from the Bronx office of the Department of City Planning. We are here today to present a proposed zoning text amendment that would affect requiring a special permit for new hotels in light manufacturing districts and M1 districts. We have seen a lot of new hotels open in these areas since 2010, and we also understand that they have generated significant concern among communities. The Department of City Planning itself is also concerned about balanced neighborhood growth, which is why we are taking action now. So the presentation this morning is informational. This is not the beginning of ULURP. It's not the beginning of the land use process. It's the beginning of the public environmental review process. We released a draft scope of work about a month ago, which all of the community boards should have received in the mail. And unfortunately, the scheduling conflicted a bit with the Bronx Borough Board meeting because the scoping meeting is this afternoon already. We would have liked to come earlier, but there was no meeting happening. So you did receive written notification. The scoping meeting is this afternoon at 22 Reed Street in the Financial District at 2 p.m. But there is also a written comment period that is open, so you can submit written comment and don't have to be too concerned about making it down to 22 Reed Street this afternoon. Yeah, and so the meeting this afternoon is the public scoping meeting, and it's just the beginning of the environmental review process. The comment period is going to be open for another 10 days after this. And we will be doing the environmental review for the next few months to come, analyzing the effects of what we are proposing, the special permit. Once we finish with the environmental review, and that it won't be for many months, ULURP will begin, and you will have ample opportunity also to weigh in on the proposal at that time. So this is really just a moment to let you know that this is happening, that you can comment on the draft scope of work, that you please tell us what you think the effects of the action will be, what we should be analyzing and considering, how this could affect your community district, and the proposal itself will be coming back in the form of ULURP once we refer it out. You also may remember first hearing about a proposed hotel special permit in the context of the 10-point industrial action plan that was announced by Mayor de Blasio just 2 years ago. As we were studying the issue, we're proposing a hotel special permit in the IBZs. So the 10-point industrial action plan was just for the IBZs. As we were studying the issue, we realized that there were hotels being built in many areas that weren't in IBZs in M1 districts, and that the issue was wider than just the IBZs. So we put that temporarily on hold while we could put the draft scope of work together and the EAS together for hotels in all of the M1 districts. So we have significantly widened the geographic scope of this proposal since it was first announced 2 years ago. I did first want to start with a little bit of context, what the issue is and how we're framing it. So as you have been aware, and we've been talking about population growth a lot over the last hour, is that the population of New York City is 8.5 million people currently, and we're still expecting continued growth. We reached the employment projections for 2020 already last year in 2016. And this growth in population means an additional need for housing. We have a very significant need for housing, but this also means a greater need for services, schools, supermarkets, and other things people need to live and work. And at the same time, the economy in New York City has been thriving. We now have 4 million private sector jobs, and there has been substantial job growth since the recession. Some of the sectors that are growing the most are food services, professional services such as law, accounting, architecture, advertising, and tech firms. Healthcare has grown a lot, and so has retail. And all of these jobs require space. They need to be located somewhere. So we have employment growth on the one hand, we have population growth on the other hand, and all of those things, all of that growth needs to go somewhere. And what we have seen in the last years is that M1 districts, the light manufacturing districts, are areas of opportunity in New York City, meaning that those districts are, on average, the most underbuilt zoning districts in the city. So they have more vacant land, more underbuilt land than, say, commercial districts or residential districts. So with the increasing population and employment numbers, the Department of City Planning needs to ensure that there are sufficient opportunities to support industrial growth in the M1 districts, but also commercial growth, perhaps residential growth, and institutional growth, such as schools, in the future. And because the largest areas of opportunity are the M1 districts, we need to make sure that the rules and the zoning framework for the M1 districts is there to support that growth. However, since 1961, the zoning framework for M1 districts has changed very little. And we think that some of the rules that govern the zoning in the M1 districts should change. And among these are the rules that govern hotel development. Since 2010 specifically, the Department of City Planning has seen, or the city has seen, significant growth of hotels in these areas. And that's mainly for two reasons. So firstly, the tourism economy has really taken off in New York City. Last year, there were 61 million visitors to New York City, and that's up from 44 million just over a decade ago. So there has been over a 40% increase in the amount of visitors that New York City receives. And so, of course, the growth in visitors entails a growth in demand for hotel rooms, and those have been also delivered. So there are currently about 600 hotels in the city with over 116,000 hotel rooms. And just 7 years ago, in 2010, there were only 84,000 hotel rooms in the city. So this means that there was over 30% increase in, wait, that is the correct number, right? In just 7 years. In the number of hotel rooms in the city. And if we look at current construction numbers, there are another 170 hotels that are being built with another 24,000 hotel rooms in the pipeline. What's remarkable about the trend in the last few years is that the hotel industry has expanded beyond Manhattan. It used to be very focused on Manhattan south of 59th Street, and it has now also expanded to all of the other boroughs, most notably Queens and Brooklyn, which have seen their hotel room inventories double and triple respectively. But as you know, there has also been quite some hotel construction in the Bronx and also in Staten Island, which hardly existed before 2010. Now, if we look at the rooms that are under construction versus those that already exist, so existing rooms citywide, about 13% of them are in M1 districts, so not a very significant amount. However, from the rooms under construction, almost a third of them are in M1 districts. So there has been a shift towards the zoning district that before didn't exist, and that's for the other reason why we have seen a proliferation of hotels in M1 districts. It's mainly because the zoning framework does give hotels a competitive advantage over other permitted uses in these areas. So we modeled a few different uses that are permitted in M1 districts on the same zoning lot, just to see what kind of a building could be built on the same zoning lot if you consider different uses. So we have here a warehouse, which is pretty typical in an M1 district, an office use, which is also permitted, and hotels. And as you can see, a hotel can build a much larger building and so optimize the use of the lot compared to these other uses. And that's for a few different reasons that are mainly related to zoning and the way hotels work. Firstly, hotels have the ability to take advantage of all of the permitted floor area ratio. So many uses that are permitted in industrial areas mainly work on the ground floor because they have loading needs, such as industrial businesses. But hotels work on all floors, and so they can take advantage of all of the FAR. And then hotels work as infill developments. They can work on small sites, whereas many other uses that are permitted in these areas, such as office or industrial, tend to have horizontal operations like larger floor plates and don't want the tall, skinny tower developments like as hotels do. And the same thing for height and setback regulations that work very well for hotels and don't really work for any of the other permitted uses. Finally, there are very low parking and loading requirements in the zoning for hotels compared to other uses, and that is why the office building, for example, that's modeled on the lot is so small. It's because office floor area requires a lot of parking, whereas a hotel doesn't, and so they can build a much bigger building. Here's a map of the Bronx as a whole borough, and it shows the hotels that exist, those that are under construction, and those that are in the pre-construction process, meaning that some permits may have been filed at the Department of Buildings, but they haven't been issued or granted yet. And the ones that are in red tones are in M1 districts, so these are the areas that we're talking about specifically today. The ones in blue are in other zoning districts. Maybe the colors don't stand out so much here, definitely not on your black and on your gray map. But what is notable about the Bronx is that many of the hotels are not in the M1 districts. There are some areas where hotels are in M1 districts, but overall they tend to be more in commercial districts. Just a few background points on the Bronx hotel market, and we did hire consultants to do a tourism and hotel industry analysis of New York City, and it does take a borough by borough approach, and so the consultants looked into more detail into the Bronx hotel market. That study is on it's a long study, so it's on our website. I'm not going to go over the details today, but if you are interested, our project page has a link to the PDF, and you can look at the entire hotel and market study. It's both, it looks at past trends and then makes projections for the future, which also informed our reasonable worst case for the environmental review. So the Bronx has a small hotel inventory compared to both Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn, but it has been growing, and almost half of the currently existing rooms have been built since 2007. So hotel development has taken off in the recent years. Currently, there are approximately 20 hotel properties with about 1,000 rooms in total. And overall, the Bronx hotel market is pretty new, and what our consultants heard in interviews with developers is that it's a market that is being tested. It hasn't been so established yet. Until 2006, there were no nationally branded hotels in the Bronx, but then the Bronx Howard Johnson opened, and in the last 2 years also sort of mid-market and higher market hotels have opened in the Bronx. There are also different visitor profiles or sort of demand drivers. There are some significant medical institutions in the Bronx that drive hotel development, and otherwise in the southern Bronx there has been more hotel development, and that is also a driver for tourists who are looking to find nice accommodation options, but at a cheaper rate than in Manhattan. So, the Bronx does have many M1 districts, but only few of the M1 districts in the Bronx contain significant clusters of hotels, or even really meet the criteria that a hotel developer would be looking for. The largest hotel in the borough, which is the Residence Inn at the Hutchinson Metro Center, is in an M1 district, however. What are the conflicts of hotel development? From the Department of City Planning's perspective, we are understanding M1 districts by dividing them into somewhat two different buckets. Some M1 districts are still very actively industrial M1 districts, and so there are many active industrial businesses in these areas. And in those M1 districts, we see a potential for land use conflicts between hotels and industrial businesses, because those businesses generate noise, truck traffic, loading, pollution, and other nuisances, and those typically do conflict with hotel guests. On the other hand, once a hotel moves in an area that is actively industrial, hotel guests start to complain about these businesses and may actually harm the productivity of an industrial business. So, and often in these actively industrial districts, the hotels are physically very much out of context. They're tall towers in otherwise relatively low density areas. Then on the other hand, many M1 districts are more mixed use in character. I'm still talking about just M1 districts, not mixed use districts, but many M1 districts have that zoning, but today are maybe an auto repair corridor, or have a lot of retail, or may have some more office development, such as the Hutchinson Metro Center, which is also M1 zoned. So M1 districts, the more mixed use ones that I'm talking about, don't necessarily have the same direct land use conflicts with hotels as the more actively industrial land use conflict, the more actively industrial M1 districts, but they can, the development of hotels can still detract from opportunities for other kinds of development, as I was mentioning, and they can in some instances gear development towards serving tourists more than community needs. So we think in these instances, hotel development perhaps detracts from opportunities, and a more detailed review of such a hotel could be appropriate, or is appropriate, which is why we're proposing a City Planning Commission special permit. So the details of the proposal are these. We are proposing a zoning text amendment which would establish a City Planning Commission special permit for new hotels in M1 districts. The special permit would also include motels, tourist cabins, and botels. None of these are currently really being built. I don't think there has been a new motel built in New York City in a long time, but just to be consistent, we are applying the special permit to all of these transient accommodations. We think that a case-by-case, site-specific review process would let everybody consider the appropriateness of a new hotel in the M1 districts, whether it's an active industrial area or a more mixed-use area where we would like to see the development of other kinds of opportunities. And CPC special permit could, in some instances, still allow for hotels to serve the needs of the tourism industry when we think it's appropriate. We're proposing to apply the special permit to all M1 districts, excluding the mixed-use districts, so the MX zones or areas where we are mapping M1/Rs. Those would not have the hotel special permit. There are some mixed-use areas in the Bronx, so those are not included here. We're also proposing to exclude the airport properties, which are in Queens, and some areas with existing hotel special permit provisions, which affects mainly some areas in Manhattan. In addition, we're also not requiring a special permit for hotels that are temporary housing for the homeless. This means that the rules for citing homeless facilities would not change because of this proposal. They are currently allowed as of right in M1 districts, and we would not change that with this action. So this slide outlines the process for any proposed hotel development in an M1 district. So they would have to apply for a special permit, every single hotel development in M1 district. So this means that the special permit includes full ULURP, the full ULURP process, oh dear, with community board review, borough president review, city planning commission review, and usually the council also votes on special permits. The total length of the process is typically almost 2 years from the beginning of an application, because a hotel developer would have to draft a land use application, would have to draft an environmental review application, and once those applications are complete, the ULURP would begin. Because of the length and difficulty of the process, we think it's a significant deterrent to hotel development. Just the mere existence of a special permit means that many developers who might build a hotel would choose maybe not to do so, except if the hotel is a very big hotel, is a significant investment, maybe within a mixed-use proposal, maybe if it's near a major tourist attraction. In those cases, we think we can see applications for special permits, but otherwise it is a fairly significant deterrent to building a hotel. This is a map of the Bronx that shows where this proposal would apply and where hotel development would still be as of right. We also have more detailed maps on our project page that zoom into each community district. What you see is the areas in orange is where a hotel special permit is proposed, and the areas in blue is where hotel development would still be as of right if this proposal were enacted. So hotels are also permitted as of right in C4, C5, C6, and C8 districts, and in certain commercial overlay districts. I do quickly want to talk about the reasonable worst case, which is a relatively technical piece, but that's part of the environmental review, and that's also part of what we're asking the public to comment on. So overall, what we're seeing for the projections for the hotel market is that the current hotel development boom has largely caught up with demand, and that the supply of hotel rooms is expected to slowly diminish over the next years. So this is citywide. We have seen so many new hotels being built and so many new hotels get online that largely supply has been catching up with demand, and we're seeing somewhat of a saturation slowly in terms of hotel construction. Citywide, we're projecting that by 2028, that's our year when projections are being made, by 2028 there would be a demand for new hotel rooms of 28,000. So 28,000 new hotel rooms would be demanded, but currently the pipeline is 38,000 hotel rooms. So already now the pipeline is to a certain extent exceeding demand that we are projecting until 2028, which is based on projections for tourism, both national and international, both business and leisure. And the details of that are in that report that I mentioned before. We expect that projects that already have building permits issued would probably vest because that is reasonable to assume, and that the principal effect of the action overall citywide on a very long term would be to redirect hotel development from M1 districts to the commercial districts, where overall we think hotels are more appropriate, because that tends to be where businesses are located. Commercial districts are usually mapped around transit, and so that is a more appropriate place for hotels. Now, for the Bronx specifically, the projections looked at the current number of hotels that are being built, and projected that demand actually doesn't exceed the number of rooms that are now under construction. So basically, the rooms that are now being built would satisfy demand for the Bronx for the next 10 years to come. So we're not expecting much more hotel development in the Bronx beyond what is being planned and built right now. So what we're projecting for the reasonable worst case is that this proposal wouldn't have that much of an effect on the Bronx, because hotel development would be slowing anyway. Firstly, it has taken place mainly in commercial districts, although there are some hotel developments also in M1 districts. And secondly, hotel development is expected to be slowing anyway, and that wouldn't be so much affected by this proposal specifically. We are curious to know what you think about that, though, and would love. It would be nice if you weighed in and if you disagreed with any of this, please let us know in terms of the zone and for the scoping that we can take it into account in our analyses. So this is just a brief timeline for the proposal. It was first publicly announced together with the 10-point industrial action plan in 2015, and then we expanded the scope and have been studying this issue since. Now the scoping meeting is this afternoon at 22 Reed Street, but there is a written comment period, and that deadline is until November 6th at 5 p.m. We have an email that you can send comments to, or you could also send them to me personally or to the EARD division. I think there is also an official form that's on our website that you can also use. Basically, any way you get comment to us, you can also contact your city planning liaison that works with your community board to submit comment. Again, this is for the scoping and not for ULURP, so just take that into account as you are making your comment, and it's mainly about the analysis, what you think we need to be analyzing for the effects of the proposal. There's also a project webpage on our website that explains all of the details. You have most of it in the presentation, but there are more detailed reports. The EAS is a pretty long document that you can take a look at. And yeah, that's it for the presentation. Please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you. We have some questions for you. George?
Good morning. I'm a little, I guess, confused in regards to the proposal as it extends to hotels. This administration, in regards to transient housing for homeless people, this administration has promised that they would do away with cluster site housing and using hotels in the next 3 years. Yet your proposal does not include those provisions. Is there a reason for that?
So what the proposal does include is hotels that are transient housing for the homeless could still site as of right, but those would be purpose-built facilities. So what you would no longer have is a hotel being built as of right as a commercial hotel serving tourists, and that would then later be converted to a homeless facility. So in a way, it addresses exactly what the plan seeks to get at, is to no longer use hotel rooms or facilities built as hotels, but to have homeless families and people be in purpose-built facilities. And that is so in that way it is consistent. Yeah.
I'm also curious, because I used to work in the buildings department, although I'm not an architect or an engineer. I used to work in government relations. When we would meet with people, the commissioner, developers, I should say, of hotel properties, there are many in the Bronx that I can think of: Bruckner Boulevard, the Capri Hotel on Hutchinson, Bronx Boulevard in my district. The consensus then, I mean, and I guess my question is, has the ruling changed because you are not allowed to put homeless people in hotels? So is DCP stating that that has changed, that the attitude is now putting homeless people or residences in M1 districts permissible?
So I can elaborate on that. M1 districts don't allow residential uses.
That's correct.
What has happened because of, out of necessity, because of the homelessness crisis and the city's mandate to actually provide shelter, the city has had to provide shelter housing in transient facilities filed as a hotel, which is not actually considered a residential use under zoning. So when we talk about exempting shelters from a hotel special permit, that's what we're talking about, is the transient nature of the use, and not so much the commercial hotel. So the commercial hotels will still be subject to a special permit under this proposal. It's not the department's preference nor the administration's preference to house homeless families either in M1 districts or commercial hotels. It has unfortunately been a necessity, and this proposal is really trying to hold harmless the administration's current policies and efforts to, as you mentioned, moving away toward that practice. And it will take some time to build purpose-built shelters in appropriate locations. It's not an easy process, and it's a daunting task. And the purpose of this proposal is to not affect what they need to do and the flexibility they need to provide those facilities.
I think that we're setting, by not including those or protecting, we're creating a loophole for this to continue. And again, I think that the city is cute by half. This was my complaint then, this is my complaint now. We've long had discussions about this, especially during budget consultations. In my district, and I'll only speak to my district, although I've seen this in other districts.
So can you remind me which district are you?
12,
Okay.
Northeast Bronx. So the concern is you've identified or you've allowed for hotels, and these hotels are explicitly built for the conversion into a homeless shelter. And there is no intent for it to ever be a residential use, which is where we should house people. Again, the transient nature of hotels where people are coming for visiting, 1 week, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, they're leaving. It's transient in nature. Homeless shelters are not that, especially in like my district. When we sat down with some of the providers, they said, "Oh no, some of these people will be there 3-4 years." Again, that's not, and not your commissioner, I'm forgetting which agency I'm talking to, Stephen Banks, the current commissioner of social services, has sued the city in his previous capacity because hotels were not suited to house families, for example, because they didn't have the necessary facilities. So again, I just think that it's a very dangerous precedent that we're setting by allowing this sort of loophole to be continued.
To continue.
So, okay.
James?
Thank you. I have 4 items. First one, just stemming off of what George was saying regarding homeless facilities. Can you please give more clarity as to what provisions within the special permit that would prevent a actual commercial hotel from turning into a homeless shelter? You allude to that. And yes, standalone facilities, will be completely separate as a homeless facility. But the fact is, while there is a lot of rhetoric saying we're moving away from that, active brand name hotels are opening up and then being immediately converted into shelters as we speak. In our conversation, I had mentioned there's articles about a Best Western that had recently opened up, and within a few months, it's a homeless shelter. And our history is that usually if it's a franchise, if it's a brand name, that the likelihood is it wouldn't convert into any type of shelter. So the first part of this question is, what provisions within the special permit would, state that, your facility will not become a homeless shelter? And number 2, what will be the threshold in terms of a building? Because when you say commercial, do you mean any type of commercial hotel, or do you mean brand? Because there are boutique hotels or motels that open up or are currently running that are more likely to convert into homeless facilities.
I'll start. Maybe Jen will take over. The first question as to what provisions the special permit will have. So in order to build as of right a use group 5 hotel, which that could only be achieved by first going to the Department of Buildings and showing them an agreement with the Department of Homeless Services. And so there would need to be an agreement before construction with the Department of Homeless Services that would clarify from the beginning that this is the intended use of the facility. Now, if there was no such agreement, because it's a commercial hotel or a boutique hotel, any kind of hotel that doesn't have an agreement with the Department of Homeless Services basically would have to seek a special permit. Now, the special permit is a lengthy and hard process. We haven't specifically contemplated including any provisions that would keep a hotel, once it obtains the special permit, from contracting with the Department of Homeless Services or using it transiently to house homeless families. That would also be permitted by the underlying zoning. So that's not something we have contemplated.
Please do.
We do think, understanding the concern, but it is quite unlikely, because the special permit process is so difficult, that a hotel that would go through all of that would then simply revert to what it could have done as of right anyway. But we do hear the concern. Yeah. You had more questions?
So what will be the threshold for a definition of a commercial hotel?
The threshold would be any hotel that doesn't have an agreement with the city.
Okay. Items 2 and 3, you had, we're happy that some efforts are being made to help preserve industrial land, because it is an issue that's being gobbled up by other, adjoining uses or supplementary uses to normal industrial uses. First, could you explain why MX districts are excluded from the special permit? And number 2, partially because of the fact that you pointed out that most hotels in the Bronx do not open up in M1 zones, the concern in the borough is not necessarily only the loss of manufacturing jobs, it's the impact that such hotels will have on neighborhoods and the neighborhood context. And thus, a lot of these hotels open up in C8 zones. And C8 zones are located within the heart of many of these neighborhoods. And it's no longer the case that in New York City that these hotels are serving, the weekend getaway families, as was originally built as per the 1961 zonings. They open up these neighborhoods for other types of uses, and that's the impact on these neighborhoods. So will C8 zones be looked at, and why wasn't it considered just in general special permit, since M1 and C8 zones often border each other and have the same type of issues as it relates to hotels?
Yeah, we do think that hotels do serve a really important economic purpose in the city. I mean, they do support a lot of business growth and visitation. It's really vital to the economy. So the intent of this proposal is not to prevent or stop hotel. And we wanted to make sure that we were maintaining reasonable siting opportunities. So that this is really focused on the M1 districts because of their, as Amanda explained, as their sort of future opportunity areas for more concerted and thoughtful planning efforts. The C8s and the MX districts really do and have for a long time allowed a mix of commercial uses, and we see these places as appropriate places for hotels. I mean, there may be concerns that are unique to the Bronx, and please do share those, but I think broadly over the city, there are districts that we think the use is appropriate.
Yeah, just with the MX, like the first MX district in the city is Morrisania. Morrisania is not a tourist destination by any sense of the word. It's a, revitalizing family neighborhood, along the 3rd Avenue corridor and above. But I think, it's not, what I'm saying is not anti-hotel, it's just the appropriate locations. Just given the way the city's economy works in modern days, C4, C5, C6 districts, people come to New York largely just, to go to the more downtowns, the more densely populated areas. And it's a concern that, just with the C8 zones, that these are, peppered throughout, throughout our neighborhoods, and not always just off a highway somewhere. If that's the case, that's fine. You're coming New England Thruway, just want to get off, place to stay, makes sense. But I think that should be looked at in the future just for neighborhood context. It's great, again, for the manufacturing use and that kind of, looking for preservation for, where can we site long-term manufacturing uses. It's wonderful, but just in terms of neighborhood impact. The final point is that, you made a comment that the anticipation that hotel development will slow in the borough. For the most part, what we've heard from a lot of hotel developers that have come to us is saying they anticipate an increased volume in the borough because they can get lower rates here, and people are going to their other hotels saying, just like, it was great staying here, your rates are too high, so I might not stay here. And so they're saying we are looking at more out of borough locations, like they say, Eastern Queens and the Bronx as a whole is what they're looking at. So we actually have just heard from the hotel purveyors, good and bad actors, saying that their intent is to, look for more sites in the borough. So I would like you to consider that in your analysis. I'd say about half a dozen or so have come into us and stated that.
Adeline?
I just want to piggyback on Community Board 7 is not listed, as you can see, as an M1 or an MX. But we do have, just for your knowledge, we do have 2 hotels. One popped up on Webster Avenue because we do have the Metro North next to Botanical Gardens, so we have a small one there. Then the same company that made that hotel is doing one on Webster and Gun Hill because the Metro North is there. So we have no protection under this permit guide that you have that they can't become a shelter tomorrow, like you said Best Western did. So I think we need to be included, CB7, because already we have 2 on one strip. So I just want to share that with you. If there's a way to protect us as a board, because we're inundated now with shelters and clusters. And I know he's not here now, but the problem is that I was told that the clusters would be closing in 3 to 4 years. I just got a written notification it'll be 5 to 7 years. Meanwhile, they're bringing in more homeless shelters left and right in our neighborhood. And we had a big meeting last night about that because we need to have transparency. We need to stand up for what our community wants, and it's not fair. So now this is another open door, and it's not protected by this proposal, so I want you to consider that. Thank you.
Vicki?
Hi, thanks for coming in. I'd like to ask you to speak to a highly related issue, which is the controls on transient hotels that are part of the proposed Jerome rezoning.
That are proposed for the commercial portions of the rezoning. Yeah, so I haven't been deeply involved in, I've been very lightly involved in the Jerome Avenue, let's say that much. I've more heard of it from the sidelines because I also work at the Department of City Planning. But I know that as we undertake neighborhood studies, and there is, and that is the case in Jerome, there is a proposal to have a special permit in the commercial portions of Jerome. And to the extent that M1 districts would remain mapped in Jerome, this proposal would apply to the M1 portions of that. So there are specific concerns in the Jerome corridor about having residential and other commercial development that isn't geared toward hotels, and I think that's the intention of the special permit. I may be wrong.
Yeah. I can speak to a little more detail there. I mean, as Amanda pointed out earlier, the intent of this proposal is to really sort of take a pause and say, M1 districts probably should have some more thoughtful consideration about the kinds of developments that occur there, and sort of look forward-looking to the extent that these might be places where there are planning efforts. In places where we are engaged in planning efforts like Jerome, there's actually a public conversation about what roles hotels are playing as part of that neighborhood plan. And in Jerome, the controls there are somewhat different than what's described here. There's a residential development goal that's baked into the proposal. So how the special permit will work is that a certain sort of goal for residential units needs to be met before a special permit can be granted for a hotel. And I don't want to talk about it in too more detail than that because I don't have the text in front of me, so I don't want to misquote you, but I can certainly share the details of that special permit because they are different from this one. But that's a place where we are doing planning. We are thinking about, well, what should the future of this neighborhood look like? And there's a public conversation about what role hotels play. So they're similar but different.
Ken?
Thank you. I have a few questions. One is, we had an experience in our district where Howard Johnson's opened up. The chain went bust, and now it's a shelter. So what kind of restrictions or qualifications are there on conditions that would be similar to that, where the operator is bankrupt and then the space is available to be used for, say, shelters? That's one thing. Another question is there a citywide maximum? Is there any restriction ultimately on the amount of space that can be taken away from manufacturing areas for this purpose? Because there has to be some threshold under which the city is going to retain some manufacturing space. Because it seems to me when a hotel comes in, that's going to open the door for abutting properties. And then the third is, where do you draw the line between a bed and breakfast and a hotel?
So the first question about the Howard Johnsons, as I mentioned before, this proposal holds harmless the administration's policies for shelter housing, and that would be treated in accordance with what the administration's plans are for that. So this proposal does not address that. It's not intended to address that. And the second question about industrial areas and manufacturing uses, the administration has continued to support the industrial business zones through policies that which do not include all of the M1 districts. They are the city's most active industrial area. There are, in addition to this proposal, which would cover all of the M1 districts within the IBZs, as well as a separate proposal that is in the process now to limit self-storage development. The idea is to retain sites, not just for manufacturing. There's actually a lot less manufacturing in the city today. It continues to decline for reasons that are really independent of hotels moving in. But there are a number of other uses, as construction and wholesale trade and distribution that require big sites. These facilities are necessary to be in the city and in close proximity to businesses and residents. And the IBZs are really some of the few places where they can locate. So the intention of those proposals is really to maintain sites that are suitable for those kinds of businesses, and manufacturing is included in those kinds of businesses. And so it's really, the administration continues to have policy to support those. And the third question was about bed and breakfasts. I don't want to again, this is probably something I'll have to follow up on the details on, but I do believe that you can have, if you are in your home, you can have, as a boarder, you can rent out your space as a bed and breakfast, but I don't want to misquote that, so I will come back. Because manufacturing districts don't allow residential uses, you couldn't open a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, so bed and breakfasts are typically in houses, homes, so they would be in residential districts. But it is somewhat complicated, and we should follow up because there are a series of city laws and state laws that make the bed and breakfast conversation quite tricky. Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Bowler?
Thank you so much, Madam Deputy. Well, I'm passionately interested in this Jerome study, which over the course of 3 years, I will say I'm now a guru in learning about text amendments and everything that comes with it. With this Jerome study, you have embedded in that text amendment of M1 as part of it, the hotel. But my curiosity, it's whenever we ask the question about the hotel piece, because that was one of the things that we discouraged the motels in our district, but it's like anything else, the devil is in the details. So in this case that you now have these special permits, we voted yes with condition just last night for this process to continue forward. How will, down the line, some of these new text amendments will not retroactively affect the developers that come to that district? I'll give you an example. The city was very smart enough to pass the ZQA and MIH prior to this rezoning stuff coming up. So how will this impact it, even though you said, no, we are not going to Europe yet? That was your opening statement. So what will be the impact on all this rezoning, especially the Jerome study?
So are you asking about Jerome or about the hotel special permit?
The Jerome, we have hotel
Yeah.
text amendment
Yeah.
as part of it,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, and of course you said you are not versed in the Jerome study, which I'll say, I don't think that should be good enough.
Well, so the Jerome, and since you have been working on the Jerome map amendment, there is already a hotel special permit proposed for the Jerome rezoning, but only for the commercial districts. That's part of the neighborhood study, is the commercial district special permit for hotels. This is for the M1 zoning district. So many, and Jerome is further along in the public process than this is. So we assume if everything goes according to plan, that there, the Jerome the Jerome rezoning would be adopted before this, because it's much further along in the process. So many M1 districts in Jerome Avenue, around the Jerome Avenue corridor, are being remapped as commercial districts and will have hotel special permits. The places where M1 districts would remain even after the rezoning, there are a few places, right, that where the zoning is not changing, yes, where they're still M1 districts. When this proposal comes along in a year or so, the hotel special permit would apply to the areas that are still M1 zoned. And then in the commercial areas, there would be a hotel special permit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess the short answer is that both, assuming that Jerome is adopted as it's currently proposed, and assuming this is inevitably adopted as it's currently proposed, is that it will be harder to build a hotel. Not only will it be harder in those hotels commercial hotels that do seek approvals will have to go through an additional public process after the rezoning. They would have to, it would be the full ULURP process. They'd have to go to the community board, they have to get approval of the city planning commission, and ultimately approval of the city council. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, I wouldn't say yes, because with the DIS that was released, we did a request. We asked for complete rezoning, but our request was put in the alternative section of that report, that you want to maintain some M1. Now you're having another text amendment that will accommodate the M1 in our district to now allow special permit for hotels.
So
Is that?
Yeah, I guess the question is there concern about restricting hotels in the M1 district?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you were hoping to see more hotels?
No. There were concerns about having more hotels.
Yeah.
The hotel, Howard
right.
Johnson, that we have is now a shelter.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we know what the historical nature of the district of Jerome Avenue had been with night crawlers.
Mm-hmm.
And those and those are the kind of things we were trying to avoid.
I don't think Hyatt's coming there.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Finally, sorry.
James?
Question regarding a matter that's not currently a concern, but given recent lobbying efforts and possibility of future, concern, hostels. Would hostels be regulated and addressed by the special permit?
Again, this is something I'll have to, I don't want to like get there's a lot of details on hostels, but my understanding is that hostels are not actually currently allowed anywhere in the city under multiple dwelling laws and building codes. Some of them that have opened up through grandfathered single room occupancy buildings, which you can't, under current codes, and it's codes independent of zoning, you can't build those buildings in New York City anymore. So I do understand that there's some legislation to allow for hostels, the city council legislation. This does not affect that in any way.
But if passed, would this extend to hostel?
It would, because a hostel would be treated as a hotel under zoning. So yes, it would be treated. Yes, it would extend to hostels.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, I want to thank you for coming in today and giving this very comprehensive report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, Tom has an announcement about next month's meeting.
Good morning. Next month's Borough Board meeting, which will be held on November the 16th, which is 1 week earlier than our normal fourth Thursday meeting date, will be an important meeting because the Borough Board will be voting on the Jerome Avenue rezoning project. So it is very important that we have a quorum, so it's very important that all chairpersons be present and council members as well, so that when the Borough Board votes, while the only boards who will vote will be Community Boards 4, 5, and 7, all of the council members will have the opportunity to vote. But we still need to have a quorum for that meeting, so it is important that all the boards are represented here next, on time, next Borough Board meeting on the 16th of November, especially those who have to vote, right. That's it. And then just one other quick note, just wanting to wish the deputy a very happy birthday. Wish you good health and more success.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, I want to wish you all a very happy day. And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Charlie's Bar and Kitchen is a new American restaurant in the South Bronx. We have a seasonal menu, fresh ingredients that change over the seasons depending on what's available. We try and get to local farmers markets as much as we can. Keep the food as fresh as possible. The building is a beautiful historic piano factory. It is a landmark building. I think there's a sense of that when you feel and walk into the space. It has a very warm, cozy kind of environment, candlelit, intimate mood, and the exposed bricks and the wall. The fact that it's an old, charming landmark building from the late 1800s, I think adds to our character. So anybody who comes into the restaurant normally doesn't notice immediately why the place is called Charlie's, and So the theme of the place being Charlie's, no apostrophe, Charlie's plural, is more than one Charlie. So it becomes blatantly obvious towards the end when you're faced against this mural up against the wall of all these Charlies. But it's all about famous Charlies. So, yeah, Charlie's Bar and Kitchen, I mean, the name itself, bar and kitchen. So we started off the idea that we were prominently a bar. But some people do see us now more as a kitchen. They come here more to dine. It's a new American restaurant with slightly southern influences. Because of the seasonal menu, we get to change up the ingredients, which gives us the ability to change up the menu. As a location, I think we've captured a good kind of audience, a local audience, a Bronx audience who now looking for something a little different, come over to come see us.
City is an Asian fusion restaurant in the South Bronx. When we built the restaurant, we put our heart and soul into it. We wanted something that people will walk in and will see the restaurant and say, wow. And the moment it's combined with the taste of the food, which is also unique, gives you a taste of Asian places in the world.
Our staple here is the tuna bruschetta. It's amazing. People rave about it. It's what a lot of people come here for. They're like, somebody told me to try something that comes on this crispy rice. It's amazing. It's crispy rice, guacamole, spicy tuna, ingredients that people really, really love.
Our goal here is not just to make amazing food or nice decor or be nice. It's the whole thing. I want people to experience something that they've never experienced anywhere in the world. Good service, good food, and that it looks decent and nice. And when they're happy, it's for me like I just had an amazing epiphany. So it's the 4th year that we participate in this, and we're very, very happy to do it because for us it's giving back to the community that supported us since day one.
Bistro SK, it's a French bistro that we opened 6 years ago.
We are the only French restaurant in all of the Bronx.
It took me 4 months and a half to do the whole thing, from the wallpaper to the floor, to the sconces, to the decor. I did everything by myself.
People come in here and immediately they feel very homey. It's because we took literally the pictures off the wall of our home and brought them down and put them in the restaurant. And we want just the opposite. We want people to feel that warm and welcome when they come in here. We get a lot of business from Manhattan customers, even people from Brooklyn come, Westchester, Connecticut, but we have a lot of local Bronx people that come here as well, and a lot of City Islanders that come.
All dishes, we design them to our taste. Salmon is a piece of salmon fillet cut like as a steak. It's pan roasted. We serve it with a sage sauce with a little bit of cream. And we serve it with the black olive mashed potato and with some vegetables. It's pan-seared. Savor the Bronx, it's a possibility for us to put ourselves on a map in Bronx because people in the Bronx, let's tell the truth, they don't necessarily go to to a French restaurant in the first place, and especially if they come to City Island. My goal was to create something that was very, I'm French myself, so my goal was to bring a little part of my country here. And the best thing you can tell me when you come to my place is like, oh, you feel in France. Yeah. Then I feel that I've done my job.
We are at Amelia's Restaurant, located in Little Italy in the Bronx on Arthur Avenue. My dad and his partner started it about 20 years ago.
And I love to be on Arthur Avenue because it's the place where I can really cook the way I want.
My dad is from Palermo, and our menu consists mostly of Southern Italian cooking.
We have a beautiful dish we call pescatore that is made with shrimps. We have mussels, we have clams, and it gives a nice flavor to the sauce. It's a good condiment for the linguine that we use. We make our manicotti, we make our gnocchi like the old days by hand.
I think people feel very comfortable because we tend to make them feel at home. I think that the patio is unique to the area.
We have a nice waterfall, nice relaxing.
It's kind of like a little haven in the middle of the Bronx. People come in and they're like, wow, this is kind of cool. Where did this come from? The community is just a fun place to be. There's always something going on. If you come at Christmas time, there's lines to get into the stores because people are buying their meat, they're getting their food, they're gathering with family and friends to celebrate the holidays. If you come in the summer, there's usually feasts going on.
What makes Amelia unique is the neighborhood. We're in an area where we buy everything fresh every day. We can buy the meat, we can buy the fish, we can buy the vegetable every day because we have everything within reach.
People keep coming back, love the food.
Arthur Avenue is a good place and we're here to stay.
Salud!
We are together. And for the last 20 years, we have been building on a vision to share our views, our voices on our channels. We are the Bronx. We are BronxNet.
Well, I got this as a paid internship. Spending my time here, I really enjoyed the people that work here. I enjoy what goes on behind the scenes.
So far, I've learned how to operate a camera, how to host. I learned how to control audio.
My first time hosting was really nerve-wracking, but I really enjoyed it because it was a new experience.